guys, it's Robin, RsIslandCrafts, and welcome to my craft room. I'm back today with another requested knitting video. This time, when one of the viewers saw that I did a provisional cast on for my Midas hat, they wanted to see how I actually take the stitches from the provisional cast on and put them on a needle and use them. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. This yarn is a little darker, so hopefully we'll be able to see what we're doing. Plus, of course, I use whatever yarn I happen to have, and it is dark in some places, so we'll give it a try. Now, I put these provisional cast on. I just use whatever crochet hook and make it nice and loose. I picked it up with my size, these are size 6 needle. I put some needle protectors on it just so I wouldn't lose my stitches when I'm doing all this today. I don't have another size 6 16-inch needle. I need to still buy another one, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this size 4. You want to try to stay the same size. You definitely don't want to go any larger, but these stitches are a little bit loose, and this will be the main needle that determines the size of the stitches when they actually get onto the hat. So I feel comfortable using a smaller needle. I would probably try to avoid using like a 1 or something. I wouldn't go any further down than this 4. Now, when you first do your provisional cast on and you're making your crochet chain, they recommend that you put a knot in one end so you know which end is the one that is knotted and won't be able to be undone, and which end you can undo your chain. Now, if you're a normal crocheter, it's really easy to tell. If you've been doing it for a while, you can see the difference. But I always put a knot when I do my original first knot to start the crochet. So this is not the side that I'm going to get it off of. So I will not be using the part with the knot. You get how that goes? It's a little trick that I kind of picked up. So now I could just cut these with the scissors or anything, but it's just really easy on the last stitch of crochet to just go ahead and pull that out. I was casting on 100 stitches. I always put, 110, 120 crochet chains. It's really nothing, just crochet those really quick. So then I don't always start right at the end. It just makes it easier for me to find my stitches later. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit and see if it's going to help us check everything out. I think that should do it for us. What do you think? All right, so I have my needle that I'm going to be using. Since I'm knitting in the round, I need to use a circular needle. If I was doing something flat like a scarf, then I can go ahead and use a regular straight needle. But if you used a circular needle to do it with, you need to kind of use a circular needle afterwards. So I'm just going to hold right here where my stitches are, and I'm just going to pull this chain down a little bit. Now what I need to look for is I need to look for the stitch that goes into, here's my first crochet chain there, and I need to look for the stitch because when I did my provisional cast on, I pulled my yarn through there to put it on my needle. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if I put it through here and see what happens. Maybe I'll go from the back. Now this is supposed to be able to just zip off like a zipper. You're supposed to be able to just pull this out. I think I'll just pull this through the first one to get it through that loop. So okay, now I should be all set. Then I just go and I look to where the next spot that my yarn from my provisional cast on. It's a really good idea it's a really good idea the first few times you do this, that if you're using a blue, maybe do a white or a bright yellow so you can easily see. And I'm just going to go ahead and go through the back and grab that stitch. Now I could end up having my stitches on backwards, and then as I go back around and I knit my stitches, I can go ahead and reseat them and have them be the right way. So then, just like a zipper, I'm going to pull that through. And that came right out of that stitch. And now I can just pull it and I can see the next stitch is right here. See that? And I just grab that. Gently pull this through so I only pull out one chain at a time. Lift my little loop out of the way. If I hold my end of my yarn right here, my tail, and I grab my chain loop right there, I can just pull them and it automatically will just give that little hole, and I can just grab that next one. And this allows me to have live stitches on my needle. And I'm going to be knitting these stitches together with these stitches, and that's what's going to lock this folded brim in place. I'm going to go ahead and whip through really quick until we get over to this bright section, do a little fast forward speed up here, and then maybe we'll be able to see it better when we get into the lighter color. Sometimes this seems to be a little bit of a fuzzier yarn here. Sometimes you see the little halo there, and the fibers are getting a little knotted together, so sometimes I have to give it a little bit of a tug. Just be careful you're not pulling too hard so you don't rip them all out at once, and then you got to go and find your stitches. I don't do this very often, so it's a little bit slow and tedious for me. Okay, we're now getting into this lighter color yarn, so maybe we'll be able to see it just a little bit better here. Okay, so if I hold onto the loop and I hold onto the tail and I just give it a little tug, you could see where the crocheted chain is going through this hole right here. So I just want to go into the same place where my waste yarn is gone through. And I want to kind of get it past the narrow part of the needle so it stretches the stitch out just a little bit. I tried to go up to a size 8, hoping to get the stitch a little bit bigger instead of this 4. And I've noticed it was too big to go through this little hole. So this is a little bit tighter than I thought. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the smaller needle. And I'm just going to make sure I slide my yarn down here. It'll suck some of this looseness up into here and keep my stitch nice and large. Well, not large, but you know, it'll fit on my needle. It's not super tight through here. I can move it around. I'm not going to be actually knitting from this part, so it's not going to matter. Alright, so we've already gone through the loop, so now we're just going to pull this thread through the yarn through so that I once again have a loop and my yarn tail. I find my hole and just pop it through. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the film here, and I'm going to take all of this out. And then, because I know there's a possibility that I'm going to get a question on how am I going to combine these two to knit them together, I'll come back and show you that. And just like that, I have my waste yarn all taken out. I have all my stitches are now live from my original cast on. I have them on a separate needle here. And with this Midas hat, I believe, like I said, it's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'm just trying to keep this end here, so I'm going to go ahead and weave it in after, so I want to make sure it doesn't get caught in between, just so nothing happens to accidentally unravel. Now this might be a little bit fiddly to start with. I still have to get to the end of my row. I just didn't want my stitch marker to fall off earlier. So, okay, so now what my pattern says is I'm going to match these up stitch for stitch for the first 9 stitches. And I changed the pattern a little, so mine's going to be for the first 10 stitches. Now, unfortunately, for whatever reason, this is a little tight on here now. I think maybe I should have used a larger crochet hook when I put my stitches on. And when I'm finished with this, I'll go ahead and I'll start over again and show you how to do it. So it's going to be a little fussy to begin with, but that's okay. It's just 100 stitches. It's not that big of a deal. So what you do is you take your first stitch here, just like you would knit it. You leave your needle, leave it right there on the needle. See how I've got my needle right through there? All right, I have my working yarn is underneath both of these. I go through that first stitch, and then I go through that first leg of the back stitch. And then I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to bring it through this needle, and I'm going to bring it through this needle, and then I'm going to slide both of those stitches off. Yeah, this is going to be an issue. I might even have to switch down to a smaller needle than the size 4. Maybe I will have to do the size 1. And that just ties those two together. It's kind of like a decrease, but you're not decreasing a stitch, you're just combining two. And then you just go through and you do the same thing all the way around like that. But the biggest thing is, the biggest trick is, like I said, to make sure you put your knot. This is going to be the part that I start with. I have my slip knot. Now when I make a slip knot, I just go around, and when I come around again, I go around to the back. I take my crochet hook over the first one, I grab this back one, and I pull it under, and there you go, there's my slip knot. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put a few on here just to get it started, kind of make them a little bit loose. I think that's part of the problem with my tight provisional on that hat. See how these are just kind of much looser than what you would normally do. And then when I got to the end, I would just go ahead and pull this all the way through, snip my yarn if I'm still connected to the ball of yarn, and then just pull it all the way through. But I'm going to leave it because I'm going to save this or recycle it, or I'll do something with it. I'm getting ready to do the knitting video for the dishcloths, so I have this green yarn available to me right now. So I leave myself 5 or 6 inch tail. This is the end we are not going to be pulling out when we go to the end, so I'm going to start at this end. Like I said, I'm not going to go ahead and do the first couple. When you're looking at it, this is your chain, the main part of your chain stitch. Now if you take it and you spin it around, you'll have these bumpies on it. You see those little bumpies there? This is what we're going to go into to do our provisional cast on. So when we're crocheting, we crochet through these 2 loops, and it leaves that one on the back. When we're doing the provisional, we're just going to go through this back bump. That's what's going to allow you to pull this off. If you go through any of these other loops, you're not going to be able to just pull it off and zip it straight out like a zipper. You're going to end up having to cut each and every stitch, which, as long as you don't cut your main yarn, you'll be okay. So if you do end up with that problem, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I have my needle through my stitch. I just loop it over the top, and I'm going to pull that stitch through. See that? So now that gives me that one stitch through that loop, that little bump, and there's my regular chain on top. So then I just stick my needle into the next one. Make sure I don't have my tail, because you know we don't knit with our tail. You need to make sure we have our one that's connected to our ball. I just go ahead and loop it over the top, and then I pull it through. Now if you're having a lot of problems with this, what you can do, this is a little bit more fiddly because you only have 2 hands, you don't have 3. You could take your crochet hook, and you take, sometimes I do this when I'm picking up stitches. I would normally grab a smaller hook than this, than the one I used to make it, but you just stick it through here, through your little bump, find your working yarn, whoops. A lot of times your loops will just stick right on there. See, this is where I said it's a little complicated, you don't have enough fingers, but you can just loop that through here and pull that through, and then you can put it on your needle. But that's only if you're having a really, really hard time. As you see, it's a bit fiddly to do that. So you just kind of practice a little bit and you'll get used to it. And I'm really sorry about the way the light's flashing. Got all those construction guys out there and they seem to keep doing things. I don't know. So I just go underneath that bump. Yarn over. Pull it through. Now you want to make sure these are a little bit loose. Now, like I said, I made mine loose. So maybe when you first start, you could go up a needle size, like if they call for a size 6, maybe do your provisional cast on with a size 8 or even up to a 9 if you want, and that'll make this stay looser for you. And then you can just go ahead and switch on the next round to your regular needles. So if anyone was curious about the provisional cast on, I hope that helps out. If you have any more questions, go ahead and leave them down below. And that's it for me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.